The 5 daughters drove every maid crazy, until the single father on a Harley parked at the mansion. Before we dive in, this video is traveling across time zones right now. Share what season you're experiencing where you live. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the east wing of the Davenport estate, followed by a shriek that could wake the dead. Celeste Davenport didn't even flinch. She'd heard worse. Much worse. The crash was followed by running footsteps, then Isabella's voice raised in anger, then Sophia's sharp retort, then the twins chiming in with their eerie synchronicity. "Mrs. Davenport, I quit." Maria Rodriguez stormed into the office, her uniform torn at the shoulder, her hair escaping its once neat bun in wild tendrils. A purple stain, grape juice probably, spread across her white collar. "I'm sorry, but I have 3 children of my own and they're angels compared to—" She caught herself, pressing her lips together. Celeste set down her Mont Blanc pen with deliberate calm, the same calm she'd mastered in boardrooms from Manhattan to Monaco. 27 years old, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, and she couldn't manage her own household. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Compared to what, Maria?" "I didn't mean—" Maria's eyes filled with tears. "They put salt in my coffee. All of them. Then they locked me in the linen closet while I don't even know what they did. Something with the pool chemicals that turned the water green. And when I finally got out, Madison, or was it Mackenzie, told me that if I told you, they'd tell everyone I was stealing." "Were you?" Celeste asked mildly. "No." Maria looked horrified. "Of course not, but they said they'd plant evidence, Mrs. Davenport. They're 12 years old and they think like con artists." "I know." Celeste stood, her royal blue blazer immaculate despite the chaos that reigned beyond her office door. "I'll have accounting process your severance. You lasted longer than most." That was true. Maria had endured 3 weeks. The record was Mrs. Chen at a month. 13 caregivers in 6 months. Celeste kept a list in her desk drawer, each name a small indictment of her failure as a mother. Maria's face crumpled with something that might have been pity. "They're not bad children, Mrs. Davenport. They're just broken." The word tasted bitter, like ashes on her tongue. "I know. I'm the one who broke them. That's not what I meant." But Maria didn't contradict her either. "They're hurting, all of them. They need—" "I know what they need." Celeste cut her off, unable to hear it again. Every caregiver, every therapist, every well-meaning friend told her the same thing. Her daughters needed their mother. But how could she be what they needed when she didn't know how? After Maria left, escorted out by security with a severance check that wouldn't ease the trauma, Celeste stood at her window overlooking the Pacific. The Melbrook Santa Barbara rose behind her like a glass and steel monument to her family's success. Visible even from here, 32 stories of luxury accommodations, Michelin-starred restaurants, and a spa that celebrities flew in from around the world to experience. Her father had built that. She'd expanded it, turned Melbrook from a single property into a chain of 15 hotels across 3 continents. But she lived here, in the estate her father built on 10 acres of prime Montecito real estate, trying to pretend she knew what she was doing. 5 daughters. Isabella, 16, with eyes that judged everything and found it wanting. She had James's sharp features, his intelligence, his ability to cut with words. Sometimes looking at her was like looking at her dead ex-husband, and Celeste's chest would constrict with an emotion she couldn't name. Sophia, 14, who hadn't smiled in a year, not since the anniversary of her father's death, when she'd locked herself in her room for 3 days and emerged hollow-eyed and silent. She'd been Daddy's girl. His death had gutted her. The twins, Madison and Mackenzie, 12, who spoke their own language and excluded everyone. They'd created an entire world between them, complex and quite impenetrable. Celeste didn't know what went on in their heads. Celeste didn't know what went on in their heads, and increasingly she feared finding out. They were brilliant, tested off the charts in every metric, but they used that brilliance to torment rather than create. And little Aria, barely 10, who asked each day when Daddy was ever coming home. No matter how many times Celeste patiently explained that Daddy couldn't come home, that Daddy's car had gone off Highway 1, Aria kept asking, as if repetition could change reality. As if repetition could change reality. As if wanting something badly enough could make it true. Daddy wasn't coming home. Daddy had driven his Porsche off Highway 1 at 90 miles per hour 3 years ago, 6 months after their divorce finalized, leaving Celeste with more guilt than any human should carry and 5 girls who blamed her for everything. And maybe they were right to blame her. She'd been the one who'd asked for the divorce. She'd been the one who'd finally admitted that marrying James had been a mistake, that she'd never loved him the way a wife should, that she'd only married him because her father approved and Ryan was gone, and she needed to do something with her shattered heart. James had taken it badly, started drinking, made scenes, threatened to take the girls. Then one night he'd called her, drunk and rambling, saying he was going to make her sorry, make her understand what she'd done. An hour later, the police were at her door. Single vehicle accident. No survivors. Blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. The girls had been 13, 11, 9, and 7. Old enough to understand their father was dead, young enough to need someone to blame. And Celeste, drowning in her own guilt, had let them blame her, had pulled away instead of pulling them close, had hired caregivers instead of being there, had built walls when she should have built bridges. Now here she was, 3 years later, and the walls were so high she didn't know how to climb them anymore. "Mom!" Isabella's voice cut through her thoughts. Mackenzie locked Madison in the pool house again, and Aria is crying because Sophia told her about the Santa Barbara fires and now she thinks the house will burn down. Celeste closed her eyes. This was her life now. An endless loop of crisis management at home while she ran a billion-dollar company. Where's Sophia? In her room, with the door locked, obviously. And Mrs. Chen? Packing. Said something about her sister in San Francisco needing her urgently. Isabella's voice dripped with sarcasm. That makes 13. We're going for a record, Mom. Celeste turned to face her oldest daughter. Isabella wore black, always black, and had her father's sharp features. Sometimes looking at her was like looking at James, and Celeste's chest would constrict with an emotion she couldn't name. Loss? Regret? Relief? I'll handle it, Celeste said. Will you? Isabella crossed her arms. Or will you hire another stranger to handle it for you? The word struck like a physical blow, but Celeste kept her face neutral. Years of hostile board meetings had taught her that. I'm trying, Bella. Don't call me that. Isabella's eyes flashed. He called me that. Before Celeste could respond, the sound of a motorcycle engine rumbled up the driveway. Not just any motorcycle, a Harley, by the deep throaty growl. Celeste frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the security gate should have called. That's probably the new guy, Isabella said, already losing interest. Davis said something about hiring a mechanic who could also do facilities work. I don't know. I stopped listening. The motorcycle sound cut off, replaced by a lighter voice, a child's voice, saying something that made a man laugh, a real laugh, the kind Celeste hadn't heard in this house in years. She moved to the window overlooking the circular drive, drawn by something she couldn't name. A blue Harley Davidson sat gleaming in the California sun, chrome catching the light like diamonds, and next to it stood a man in a worn leather jacket helping a little girl with blonde pigtails off the back. The girl wore a yellow dress that seemed to capture the sunlight itself, bright and cheerful and completely out of place against the somber tones of the estate. She was talking animatedly, her hands gesturing wildly as she described something, and even from this distance Celeste could see her enthusiasm was infectious. The man crouched down to her level, his movements easy and practiced, and even from this distance Celeste could see his smile. It transformed his face, made him look younger, softer. He said something that made the girl laugh, a pure, delighted sound that carried even through the closed windows, then straightened, pulling off his helmet. Celeste's breath caught. Even after 15 years she knew that profile, the strong jaw she'd traced with her fingers, the way he held himself, with a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with wealth or status, that particular tilt of his head when he was amused, slightly to the left like he was listening to some private joke. But it couldn't be. Ryan Walker had left Montecito the summer she turned 17, the summer before her father sent her to boarding school in Switzerland, the summer she'd promised to wait for him, and then hadn't. The summer that had shaped everything that came after. Mom? Isabella's voice seemed to come from very far away, cutting through the fog of memory. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. A ghost. Yes, that's exactly what Ryan Walker was. A ghost from a past she'd tried so hard to forget, and failed to forget every single day for 15 years. I need to. Celeste couldn't finish the sentence. Her throat had closed up, her heart hammering so hard she was surprised Isabella couldn't hear it. She moved toward the door on autopilot, her mind racing, spinning, trying to process the impossible. It couldn't be him. Ryan Walker had been the gardener's son, a boy from the wrong side of the divide who'd taught her to ride his father's old motorcycle, and kissed her under the stars and promised her everything would work out. But nothing had worked out. She'd gone to Switzerland. He'd disappeared. She'd married James Davenport III, a man her father approved of, and built a life that looked perfect from the outside. By the time she reached the front entrance, her marketing director, Davis Richardson, was already greeting the newcomer. Davis, 50 and perpetually stressed, with his tablet permanently attached to his hand and his phone always buzzing, looked almost giddy with relief. "Glad you could start today. We're in a bit of a crisis, as you can probably tell." Davis gestured toward the house where the sound of arguing children filtered through the walls. Madison shrieking about something, Mackenzie shouting back, their voices creating a stereo effect of chaos. "The previous maintenance supervisor quit last week. The pool filtration system is malfunctioning and turning the water strange colors. The outdoor lighting keeps short-circuiting, and we have a charity gala here in 3 days that absolutely cannot be canceled. The governor's wife is coming. We need everything perfect." "No problem," the man said, and Celeste's knees went weak. That voice, deeper now, rougher around the edges like good whiskey, but unmistakably his. It carried the same confidence it always had, the same quiet assurance that had made 17-year-old Celeste believe anything was possible. "I can handle it. Fixed worse for less. But I need to be clear up front. My daughter comes with me. Non-negotiable. She goes where I go or I don't go anywhere." The fierceness in his voice when he said, "my daughter," made something in Celeste's chest tighten. This wasn't the 20-year-old boy she'd loved. This was a father, a man who'd put his child first, who'd built his life around protecting someone he loved. Of course. We discussed that in the interview." Davis nodded hastily, consulting his tablet. "Your references were impeccable, by the way. The Morrison estate said you basically rebuilt their entire electrical system, and the Brentwood Hotel called you a miracle worker. We're lucky to have you, especially on such short notice. Happy to help. And Hannah, that's my daughter. She's good, well-behaved, won't cause any trouble. I'm sure she's lovely." Davis noticed Celeste and brightened, relief flooding his features. "Mrs. Davenport, perfect timing. This is Ryan Walker, our new facilities manager. Ryan, this is Celeste Davenport, owner of the estate and CEO of Mel Brock Hotels." Ryan turned and their eyes met. The world tilted. His eyes were the same gray-green she'd memorized on that dock 15 years ago, the night before her father sent her away. But there were lines around them now, the kind that came from laughter and pain in equal measure. His hair was shorter, touched with silver at the temples, and he'd filled out, shoulders broader, presence more grounded. But it was his eyes that held her, eyes that recognized her, then shuddered with something she couldn't read. "Mrs. Davenport." His voice was professionally neutral. He didn't extend his hand. "I appreciate the opportunity." The formality cut deeper than she'd expected. He was pretending not to know her. Or maybe he genuinely didn't care anymore. 15 years was a long time. People changed. She'd certainly changed. "Mr. Walker." She matched his tone, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "Welcome to the estate. I trust Davis has gone over the—" "Excuse me?" The little girl stepped forward, and Celeste noticed she had Ryan's eyes but lighter hair, almost white gold in the sun. "Are you the princess who lives here?" Despite everything, Celeste almost smiled. "I'm not a princess. You look like one." The girl studied her with the brutal honesty only children possess. "You have pretty clothes and a big house. That's what princesses have in stories." "Hannah." Ryan's voice held a warning, but it was gentle. "Remember what we talked about?" "Right. Some people don't like being called princesses because they had to work hard for what they have." Hannah looked back at Celeste. "Did you work hard?" The question was so unexpected, so sincere, that Celeste found herself answering honestly. "Yes, I did." "That's good." Hannah nodded with satisfaction. "Daddy says people who work hard are the best kind of people. He works really hard. He fixes motorcycles and builds things and can make anything run better. And I help sometimes." "I'm sure you're a very good helper," Celeste said softly. "I am," Hannah beamed. "I'm 7, and I know all about tools and engines and— Oh!" Her eyes went wide as she looked past Celeste. "Are those your daughters?" Celeste turned. Her 5 daughters had materialized at the doorway, like a judgmental tribunal. Isabella in her black, Sophia in her oversized hoodie despite the warmth, the twins in matching outfits they'd undoubtedly designed to confuse people, and Arya clinging to Isabella's hand. "How many are there?" Hannah breathed, clearly impressed. 5, Madison said flatly. "Wow." Hannah walked right up to them with the fearlessness of the very young. "I always wanted a sister, but Daddy says one of me is already a handful. Do you like having sisters?" The question hung in the air. Celeste watched her daughters exchange glances, saw the walls they'd built around themselves. They were about to shut Hannah down with the same cold efficiency they'd used on everyone else who'd tried to breach their defenses. But then Arya, her baby, spoke. Sometimes. It's loud. I like loud, Hannah announced. Quiet is boring. Do you want to see my daddy's motorcycle? It's really cool and blue like the ocean, and sometimes he lets me help wash it. I don't care about motorcycles, Sophia muttered, but her eyes flicked toward the Harley with interest. That's okay. What do you like? Hannah asked. The question was so simple, so genuine that Sophia actually answered. Art, photography. Cool. Can you take a picture of me and the motorcycle? Daddy has a camera in his bag. He always does because he says memories are important. He can get it. And just like that, Celeste watched in astonishment as her daughters who'd driven away 13 caregivers in 6 months, began to unbend. Not much, not obviously, but Sophia was actually considering the request, and the twins had stopped whispering to each other to listen, and even Isabella's expression had softened marginally. Ryan caught her eye over Hannah's head, and for just a moment, the professional mask slipped. She saw recognition, memory, and something else. Resignation, maybe, or regret. Then it was gone, and he was all business again. Hannah, let the ladies breathe. We're here to work, not make friends. Why can't I do both? Hannah asked reasonably. Because, Ryan paused, seeming to realize he didn't have a good answer. Just give them space, okay? Okay, Daddy. But Hannah was already smiling at Arya, who was peeking around Isabella's arm. I like your hair. It's the same color as mine. Arya actually smiled back. A tiny smile, barely there, but Celeste saw it and felt something crack in her chest. Davis, oblivious to the undercurrents, clapped his hands together. Well, this is going better than I expected. Ryan, why don't I show you the facilities area and the maintenance schedule? Hannah can stay with... No. Ryan's voice was firm but not harsh. She stays with me. Of course, of course. Davis nodded hastily. This way then. As Ryan followed Davis toward the pool house, Hannah skipped alongside him, chattering about the fountains and the gardens and everything she could see. Celeste watched them go, her mind spinning. Mom. Isabella's voice was quiet. You know him. It wasn't a question. Celeste should have known Isabella would notice. Her oldest daughter missed nothing. A long time ago, Celeste said carefully. Before you were born. How long ago? 15 years. Isabella studied her with those two old eyes. What happened? Life happened. Celeste turned away from the sight of Ryan's retreating back. It always does. Come on. We need to get Mackenzie out of the pool house and convince Sophia the house isn't going to burn down. The new guy has kind eyes, Arya said suddenly. And his daughter is nice. Don't get attached, Isabella warned. They'll leave like everyone else. But as they walked back into the chaos of their house, Celeste couldn't help but think, what if they don't? The rest of the day passed in a blur of crisis management. Celeste had conference calls with hotel managers in 3 different time zones, a board meeting that ran long, and a negotiation with contractors who were threatening to walk off a renovation project in Miami if she didn't personally intervene. By the time she looked up from her desk, the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. She stood, stretching muscles sore from hours at the computer, and noticed the house was quiet, suspiciously quiet. Celeste walked through the halls listening. No arguing, no crashes, no screaming. The silence was so unusual it bordered on unnerving. She found her answer when she reached the back terrace. All 5 of her daughters sat on the stone steps leading down to the gardens, and Hannah Bell Walker sat right in the middle of them, gesturing with wild enthusiasm as she told some story, her voice carried in the evening air. And then Daddy said the engine was toast, but I knew it wasn't because I could hear the compression was still good, so I told him to check the fuel injectors, and I was right. Hannah's pride was evident. I'm going to be a mechanic just like him when I grow up. Or maybe an astronaut, I haven't decided yet. You can be both, Arya said quietly. Really? Hannah turned to her with delight. Sure, you could fix spaceships. Madison and Mackenzie exchanged a look, one of their silent conversations. Then Madison spoke. That's actually not a bad idea. NASA does need aerospace mechanics. See? Hannah bounced. I knew I could do both. What do you want to be? The question was directed at Sophia, who shrugged. I don't know. Nothing, probably. That's sad, Hannah said matter-of-factly. Everyone should want to be something. My daddy says wanting things is what makes life interesting. Even if you don't get them, wanting them means you're alive. Celeste leaned against the doorframe, watching. Where was Ryan? And how was this child doing what 13 trained caregivers couldn't, getting her daughters to actually talk? What if what you want is impossible? Isabella asked, her voice carrying an edge. Then you want something else, and Hannah said simply. Or you change what's possible. Daddy says the impossible is just the possible nobody figured out yet. Your dad says a lot of things, Sophia muttered, but without heat. He's smart, Hannah said loyally. And he reads. A lot. He says reading is like having a million teachers who live in books. What does he read? This from Madison. Everything. Philosophy and fiction and poetry and, oh, he loves motorcycles magazines obviously, and he reads to me every night. Last night we finished a book about a girl who lives in France and has to be brave during a war. Number the Stars? Arya asked. Yes. Hannah's face lit up. You know it? It's one of my favorites. Mine too now. The ending made me cry. Did you cry? A little. And just like that they were talking about books. Her daughters, who'd barely spoken to each other in civil tones for months, were discussing literature with a 7-year-old girl in a yellow dress. Celeste's phone buzzed. A text from Davis. Found Ryan. He fixed the pool filtration system already. Also repaired the security gate and recalibrated the outdoor lighting. This guy's a miracle worker. Another text followed. He's in the garage now. Said something about checking the generator. Should I stop him? Celeste typed back. No. Let him work. She pocketed her phone and was about to retreat to her office when Isabella spotted her. Mom. Her daughter's voice made the other girls turn. We're hungry. Usually this was when Celeste would call whatever catering service they were using that week or order from one of the restaurants. But something about the scene, her daughters actually sitting together, Hannah's bright presence among them, made her say, I'll make dinner. 5 faces showed identical expressions of shock. Even Hannah looked surprised. You cook? Mackenzie asked. I used to. Before boardrooms and balance sheets consumed her life. Before she forgot what it meant to do simple things. I'm probably rusty, but I can help. Hannah jumped up. I'm a really good helper in the kitchen. Daddy taught me to make pasta and sauce and everything. Celeste found herself smiling despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. All right. Anyone else? Her daughters exchanged glances. Finally, Arya stood. I'll help. Then Madison. Then Mackenzie. Then Sophia, looking like she was doing Celeste a massive favor. Finally, Isabella sighed and stood. This is going to be a disaster, her oldest daughter predicted. Probably, Celeste agreed, but maybe that's okay. The kitchen was enormous, all marble and stainless steel, designed for caterers rather than family cooking. Celeste stared at the Viking range, trying to remember where things were. They had staff who cooked, staff who cleaned, staff who managed everything. She'd stopped being part of the daily workings of the house years ago. Do you have pasta? Hannah asked, opening cabinets with the confidence of someone used to making herself at home anywhere. Pantry's there, Isabella pointed. Fully stocked. We just never use it. Hannah found the pasta. Penne, rigatoni, linguine, every variety imaginable. Wow, you have enough to feed an army. My father believed in being prepared for everything, Celeste murmured. Is he here? Hannah asked with interest. Your father? No, he passed away 5 years ago. Oh, Hannah's face fell. I'm sorry. That must be really sad. I never had a grandpa, but Daddy says they're special. Celeste's throat tightened. They are. What about your mother? Hannah persisted with the innocent curiosity of childhood. She died when I was young. Younger than you. Hannah's eyes widened. That's really sad. Who took care of you? My father. And nannies. Many nannies. Like us, Madison said softly. That's why we had so many. The observation hung in the air. Celeste hadn't thought about it that way before, but Madison was right. She'd reproduced her own childhood. Wealthy, lonely, managed by hired help. The realization stung. Well, you have each other now, Hannah said practically. That's good. Being alone is the worst, right, Daddy? Celeste turned. Ryan stood in the kitchen doorway, tool bag in hand, grease on his uniform. He looked tired but satisfied. The expression of someone who'd done good work. Right, he agreed, his eyes meeting Celeste's for just a second before moving to his daughter. What are you doing, baby girl? Helping make dinner. Mrs. Davenport is going to cook and I'm helping and everyone's helping. Hannah gestured expansively. You should help too. I should clean up first. Ryan glanced down at his stained uniform. I'm a mess. There's a bathroom down the hall, Celeste heard herself say. Second door on the left. You can wash up there. Thanks. He disappeared before she could say anything else. Hannah immediately took charge. directing the girls like a tiny general. Okay, so someone needs to boil water, someone needs to get vegetables for salad, someone should set the table. Oh, do you have a big table where everyone sits together? Dining room, Sophia said. But we never eat there. Too formal. What about outside? Hannah pointed to the terrace. It's pretty outside and it's still warm. The outdoor table seats 12, Madison said. Perfect. Hannah beamed. Let's eat outside under the stars. It's magical. And somehow, improbably, they did. Celeste found herself cooking pasta with sauce that was definitely not gourmet but was hot and edible. The process felt foreign and familiar at once. Her hands remembered movements she thought she'd forgotten. Boiling water, testing pasta for doneness, stirring sauce so it wouldn't stick. Her mother had taught her these things before she died, in a kitchen much smaller than this one, and Celeste had thought those memories lost. But they surfaced now, guided by Hannah's enthusiastic instructions and her daughter's cautious participation. Arya made a salad with Hannah's enthusiastic guidance, the little girl showing her how to tear lettuce. Never cut it, Mrs. Arya, that makes it brown. And how much dressing was enough? Just a little so the vegetables can breathe. Arya absorbed every word, her small face serious with concentration, and Celeste's heart ached watching her baby find joy in something so simple. The twins set the outdoor table with placemats and actual cloth napkins, debating the proper placement of forks and spoons with the intensity they usually reserved for torturing caregivers. The fork goes on the left, Madison insisted. No, it can go on either side depending on the style, Mackenzie countered. They compromised by creating a pattern that alternated. Pleased with their innovation, Sophia photographed the process on her phone. The first time Celeste had seen her willingly take pictures in months. The girl moved around the kitchen like a ghost, capturing moments. Hannah standing on a stool to stir sauce, Arya carefully arranging tomatoes in the salad bowl, the twins measuring out exact spacing for the napkins, even Isabella reluctantly polishing wine glasses. Through Sophia's lens, the chaos became art. Isabella even found wine glasses for the adults and juice glasses for everyone else, though she grumbled the entire time about forced family bonding and desperate attempts at normalcy. But she did it, and that was something. That was more than Celeste had gotten from her oldest daughter in months. Ryan returned in clean clothes, jeans and a simple gray t-shirt that made his shoulders look even broader, more solid. He'd washed the grease from his hands, but there were still traces under his nails, the permanent mark of real work, of building and fixing and creating. He looked good, too good, ruggedly handsome in a way that expensive suits could never achieve. Celeste focused on stirring the sauce, but she felt his presence like a physical heat. Smells amazing, he said, and she wasn't sure if he meant the food or something else. His voice carried undertones she couldn't quite read. It's just pasta, she said, too aware of how close he stood. Sometimes simple is best. Was he still talking about food? His eyes said he wasn't. They carried everything outside as the stars began to appear, each person taking ownership of something. Plates, napkins, bread, salad, the pot of pasta steaming in the cooling evening air. The outdoor table, rarely used except for catered events, suddenly seemed made for this moment. Strung lights overhead cast a warm glow, creating an intimacy that made the vast estate feel smaller, more manageable. The sound of waves on the beach below provided a rhythmic soundtrack, and the scent of jasmine from the gardens mixed with garlic and tomatoes in summer. This is beautiful, Hannah breathed as they all settled into chairs, her eyes wide with wonder. It's like a fairy tale. And it was. Not magazine beautiful or designer beautiful, but real beautiful. Messy and imperfect and alive. Mismatched chairs because they'd pulled some from the pool house. Napkins folded incorrectly because the twins were still learning. Wine poured too full in some glasses, not enough in others. Pasta served in portions that varied wildly. But everyone was here together, and that was its own kind of magic. They ate, and Hannah asked questions about everything. The house. How many rooms are there? Do you ever get lost? Sometimes, Arya admitted. It's too big. The hotel business. What's the fanciest hotel you own? The one in Monaco, Celeste answered. It has a casino. And what it was like having sisters. Is it fun? Sometimes, the twins said in unison, then looked at each other and almost smiled. When they're not annoying, Sophia added, but without malice. What everyone's favorite color was. Blue for Celeste, which made Ryan's eyes flicker with memory. He remembered, she could tell. Green for Isabella. Purple for Sophia. Pink and orange for the twins. Yellow for Arya. Rainbow for Hannah because she couldn't choose just one. Simple questions that somehow got her daughters talking. Really talking. Not performing for adults or deflecting with sarcasm or hiding behind walls, but actually engaging, sharing, being present. "What's your favorite color, Daddy?" Hannah asked Ryan. "Gray," he said, and his eyes met Celeste's across the table, like the ocean before a storm. Celeste remembered. Of course she remembered. That's what he'd called her eyes once. Gray-green like the ocean before a storm. Beautiful and dangerous and impossible to look away from. The fact that he remembered too made her chest tight. Ryan said little beyond answering Hannah's questions, but Celeste felt his presence like a physical weight. He sat across from her, helping Hannah cut her pasta, answering when spoken to, but mostly listening with an attention that made people feel heard. She wondered what he was thinking. If he was remembering that summer like she was, if he'd thought about her at all in the 15 years since, or if she'd been easy to forget, if he'd loved his ex-wife the way he'd once claimed to love Celeste, if he'd moved on completely while she'd carried the weight of what-ifs for 15 years. "This is nice," Arya said suddenly. "All of us together." "Yeah," Mackenzie agreed. "It's different." "Good different?" Hannah asked hopefully. The twins looked at each other, then nodded. "Good different." After dinner, Hannah insisted on helping clean up, and the other girls followed suit. Celeste found herself washing dishes alongside her daughters, something she couldn't remember doing maybe ever. The normalcy of it was strange and comforting. Ryan appeared at her elbow. "I should get Hannah home. It's past her bedtime." "Already?" Hannah protested from where she was drying plates with Sophia. "But we're having fun." "We can have fun again tomorrow," Ryan said gently, "when we come back to work." "You're coming back?" Arya's voice was small, hopeful. "If your mother wants me to," Ryan said, his eyes on Celeste. She should say yes for practical reasons. He'd fixed more in one day than the last maintenance team had in a month. But that wasn't why she said, "Yes, please come back." Hannah cheered. "See? I told you this would be the best job ever." They walked Ryan and Hannah to the motorcycle. The blue Harley gleamed under the driveway lights, and Hannah climbed on the back with practiced ease, accepting the helmet her father handed her. "Thank you for dinner," Ryan said formally. "It was unexpected." "Thank you for your work today," Celeste replied, equally formal. "And for Hannah. She's special." "I know." Pride and love filled his voice. "She's my whole world." Something about the way he said it made Celeste's eyes sting. This man who had nothing compared to her wealth loved his daughter with a purity that made Celeste's complicated relationship with her own children feel shabby. "Bye," Hannah waved to the girls who'd gathered at the door. "See you tomorrow." "Bye," they chorused back. Even Isabella waved. Ryan started the motorcycle and the engine roared to life. For just a moment before his helmet went on, he looked at Celeste. Really looked at her. And in his eyes, she saw everything they'd been, and everything they'd lost, and everything they could never be again. Then he was gone, the Harley's taillights disappearing down the drive. "Mom?" Isabella's voice made her turn. "Are you crying?" Celeste touched her face, surprised to find wetness. "Just dust." From the motorcycle, Isabella looked at her with those two knowing eyes. Right. Dust. Inside, the house felt different, fuller somehow, despite the departure. As Celeste climbed the stairs to her room, she passed Arya's door and heard her daughter humming. Actually humming. When was the last time that had happened? In her own suite, Celeste stood at the window overlooking the ocean. The moon painted a silver path across the water, and she remembered another night. Another moon when Ryan had kissed her for the first time on the beach below. She'd been 17, home for the summer from the boarding school in Connecticut, where her father had sent her after her mother's death. Lonely, grieving, lost in a house too big and too full of memories. Ryan had been 20, working for her father's groundskeeper, and they'd met by the pool house when she couldn't sleep and found him fixing a sprinkler system at midnight. "You're Mr. Davenport's daughter," he'd said, not a question. "Guilty," she'd replied. "And you're the gardener's son who works all night. Can't fix sprinklers when they're running during the day." Logic. He'd smiled at her, and it was a real smile. Not the careful, respectful smiles the staff usually gave her. "I'm Ryan." "Celeste." "I know." Another smile. "The whole estate knows. You're kind of famous." "For what?" "Being ignored by my father and shipped off to boarding schools. For being beautiful and sad." The staff talk. He'd stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Want to see something cool?" That had been the beginning. He'd shown her the night-blooming jasmine, taught her about constellations, made her laugh for the first time since her mother's funeral. They'd started meeting every night that summer. Secret meetings because her father would never approve of the groundskeeper's son talking to his daughter. stolen kisses in the shadows of the pool house, whispered dreams about the future. He'd taught her to ride his motorcycle, shown her how to fix engines, read her Neruda and Whitman, and made her believe the world could be bigger than her father's expectations. They'd made love for the first time on a blanket under the stars, and he'd promised her everything. Forever. Always. Love that would last beyond summer. Then her father found out. The head gardener must have said something, or maybe someone on staff had seen them together. Her father had been coldly furious in the way only Gregory Davenport could be. No yelling, just icy disappointment and immediate action. Told her Ryan was too old for her, from the wrong background, that he was clearly using her. Sent her to Switzerland the next day, a language immersion program that was really exile. Told her Ryan had taken money to disappear, that he'd never really cared, that she'd been a stupid girl with a summer crush. She'd believed it. God help her, she'd believed it, because who argues with their father? Who questions when you're 17 and confused and the boy you love is suddenly gone without a word? So when she came home a year later and he was truly gone, she'd hardened her heart. Married James because he was suitable, because her father approved, because she needed to prove Ryan hadn't broken her. Built her life on the foundation of a lie her father told. And now he was back. Not as the boy she'd loved, but as a man. A man with a daughter and a life she knew nothing about. A man who looked at her like a stranger. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Ryan. Davis gave me your number for work purposes. Hannah wanted me to thank you again for dinner. She said it was the best night she's had in a long time. She says your daughters are sad but nice, and she wants to help them be less sad. I told her that's not her job, but you know Hannah. She doesn't listen. Anyway, see you tomorrow." Celeste read the message 3 times, her heart pounding. The professional words, the mention of work purposes, but also Hannah's words through him. Sad but nice. Was that how her daughters appeared to everyone? How she appeared? She typed back, "Thank you, and thank Hannah for me. She's remarkable. You've done well with her." A long pause, then, "I've tried. Being a parent is the hardest thing I've ever done." "I know," she typed. "I'm not very good at it." Another pause. She could imagine him debating whether to respond, how to respond. Finally, "You made dinner. That's something." Such simple words, but they landed like absolution. She'd made dinner. She'd sat with her daughters. She'd tried. "Good night, Ryan. Good night, Celeste." Her name. He'd used her name. Not Mrs. Davenport, not ma'am, but Celeste. 15 years dissolved in 5 letters. She didn't sleep much that night. Morning came too early. Celeste had back-to-back meetings starting at 8, but she found herself looking out her office window every time she heard a motorcycle. Ridiculous. She was a CEO, a businesswoman, someone who made decisions affecting thousands of employees. She didn't moon over men like a teenager. But when the blue Harley pulled up at 9:30, her heart jumped anyway. Hannah bounced off the bike in a pink dress this time, already talking before Ryan could even remove his helmet. Celeste watched her daughters emerge from various parts of the house like flowers to sunshine, gravitating toward the little girl who'd somehow cracked their shells in a single evening. "Mrs. Davenport?" Her assistant's voice on the intercom. "The Tokyo call is ready. One moment." Celeste couldn't tear her eyes away from the scene below. Ryan was crouching down, checking something on his motorcycle, while Hannah showed the twins some kind of tool. Arya stood close, listening intently, and even Sophia had her camera out, snapping photos. Only Isabella held back, watching from the terrace with arms crossed. Always the skeptic, always the one who remembered that good things left. "Mrs. Davenport?" "Yes." "Put them through." The day consumed her. Negotiations, reports, a crisis at the Miami property that required her full attention. But in the spaces between, she found herself aware of Ryan's presence in the house. She'd see him passing through the halls, tool bag over his shoulder, stopping to answer one of Hannah's endless questions or help one of her daughters with something. At lunch, she emerged to find Hannah teaching the twins how to make friendship bracelets on the terrace. Ryan sat nearby reviewing blueprints of the property's electrical system, occasionally glancing up to check on his daughter. "Mrs. Davenport." He stood when he saw her, professional again. "Please, call me Celeste." The words came out before she could stop them. His jaw tightened. "Is that appropriate? We're adults, we knew each other once. I think we can use first names." "Did we?" His voice was soft. "Know each other?" The question hit like a punch. "I thought we did." "So did I." He turned back to his blueprints. "Then you married James Davenport 3 months after you got back from Switzerland. Saw it in the society pages, beautiful wedding. You looked happy." Celeste's breath caught. "Ryan, it's fine. But his voice said it wasn't. It was 15 years ago. We were kids. We weren't that young. Young enough to believe in fairy tales. Finally, he looked at her, and she saw old hurt in his eyes. Young enough to think love conquered all. Young enough to make promises we couldn't keep. I tried. Did you? The question was quiet but devastating. Because from where I stood, you disappeared to Switzerland and came back engaged to someone else. Your father told me to stay away from you, that you'd made your choice, that I'd only embarrass you if I tried to contact you. I believed him. Stupid, right? Celeste's world tilted. My father told me you'd taken money, that you'd agreed to leave if he paid you, that you'd only been with me for the summer because you knew who I was. Ryan's face went white. What? He said you took $50,000 and signed a non-disclosure agreement, that you'd never really cared about me, just about what you could get. That's... Ryan sank back into his chair. That's not true. None of that is true. He threatened to have me arrested for trespassing if I ever set foot on the property again. Said he'd make sure I never got work anywhere in California. I was 20 years old with no money and no connections. What was I supposed to do? They stared at each other, the weight of her father's lies settling between them like something physical. He lied to both of us, Celeste whispered. Yeah. Ryan's laugh was bitter. Apparently. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. I should have tried harder, should have questioned. We were kids, Ryan repeated. And he was your father. You trusted him. That doesn't make it better. No. He stood again, gathering his blueprints. But it is what it is. You married someone else, had 5 daughters, built an empire. I married someone else too, had Hannah, got divorced. Life moved on. You married? For 3 years. Hannah's mother left when Hannah was 2. Decided she wasn't cut out for motherhood. Haven't heard from her since. He said it matter-of-factly, but Celeste heard the pain underneath. So I raised Hannah on my own. Did mechanic work, facilities work, whatever paid the bills and let me be there for my daughter. I'm sorry, Celeste said again. Don't be. Hannah's the best thing that ever happened to me. And you have 5 daughters. That's something. 5 daughters who hate me. They don't hate you. Ryan's voice softened. They're hurt. There's a difference. Hannah says they're sad but nice. That means there's good in there buried under the pain. You just have to dig it out. And if I don't know how, then you learn. He met her eyes. Same way I learned. By failing a lot and occasionally getting it right. Daddy! Hannah's voice carried across the terrace. Can we show Mrs. Celeste what we made? Celeste's lips quirked. Mrs. Celeste. She compromised, Ryan said dryly. Since Mrs. Davenport was too long and Celeste seemed too informal. I like it. The girls came running over, all 6 of them, with friendship bracelets in various states of completion. Hannah's was neat and colorful. The twins were matching and complex. Arya's was simple but sweet. Sophia's had a geometric pattern that was almost architectural. Even Isabella had made one, though hers was predictably black. We made you one too, Arya said shyly, holding out a bracelet in blues and whites. Hannah said everyone should have one. Celeste took it with trembling fingers. It's beautiful. Put it on, Hannah encouraged. Then we're all connected. As Celeste tied the bracelet around her wrist, she felt something shift. A small connection, fragile as spider silk, but real. Thank you, she said. All of you. You're welcome, Mrs. Celeste, Hannah said seriously. Then, with the bluntness of childhood, you should smile more. You're really pretty when you smile. Beside her, Ryan made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Celeste felt her face heat. I'll work on that, she managed. Good. Hannah turned to Ryan. Daddy, can we eat lunch with everyone? We have lunches in my bag, but eating together is more fun, right? Hannah looked at the other girls who nodded agreement. Please. Ryan looked at Celeste. We don't want to impose. You're not, Celeste heard herself say. I was about to order from the cafe. We could all eat on the terrace if that's all right. Yay! Hannah cheered, and the other girls smiled. Actual smiles. So they had lunch together, and dinner, and somehow it became a pattern. Ryan and Hannah arrived each morning, worked on various projects, and stayed for meals. The girls gravitated to them like planets to suns, especially Hannah, whose endless optimism was apparently contagious. Days turned into a week, then 2. The house transformed. Not just physically. Ryan fixed everything that had been broken or ignored, but emotionally, there was laughter now, conversations, moments of lightness that had been missing for so long. Celeste found herself looking forward to 6:30, when work ended and they all gathered for dinner. Found herself lingering in the kitchen, cooking simple meals with Hannah's help and her daughter's increasingly enthusiastic participation. Found herself watching Ryan when he didn't know, memorizing the man he'd become. He was still the boy she'd loved. She could see glimpses of him in Ryan's laugh and the way he listened to people in his kindness. But he'd grown into someone deeper, more grounded. Fatherhood had shaped him into something solid and real. And Hannah, God, Hannah was a miracle. She moved through the house like a tiny sun, warming everything she touched. Celeste's daughters, so frozen for so long, were thawing. Arya laughed again. The twins included others in their private world. Sophia was taking photographs constantly, capturing moments instead of hiding from them. Even Isabella's walls were cracking bit by bit. "You know this can't last," Isabella said one night after dinner. They stood at the terrace railing watching the others play a game Hannah had invented. "Why not?" Celeste asked. "Because it never does. Good things leave. People leave." Isabella's voice was flat. "Daddy left. Every nanny left. Eventually they'll leave too. Maybe. Or maybe we'll make them want to stay." Isabella looked at her. "How?" "I don't know yet." Celeste was honest. "But I'm going to try." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Celeste received a text from Ryan. "Hannah wants to know if we can take everyone to the beach tomorrow. It's my day off and she's been talking about building sandcastles with the girls all week. I told her I'd ask." Celeste stared at the message. A day at the beach. All of them together. It was so normal, so ordinary, and yet she couldn't remember the last time she'd done anything like that with her daughters. "Yes," she typed back. "What time?" 10. "Hannah will be excited. Fair warning, she'll want to start planning now. The girl makes lists. Tell her to make all the lists she wants." A pause then. "She gets that from me. The list thing. I like organization. I remember." Celeste typed before she could think better of it. "You used to make lists of stars. Constellations you wanted to show me." The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "I still look at those stars sometimes. Wonder if you see them too." Celeste's throat tightened. "I do. Every night." "Good night, Celeste." "Good night, Ryan." She fell asleep with her phone in her hand and dreamed of summer nights and motorcycles, and a boy who'd promised her the moon. The beach trip happened on a Sunday morning that smelled of salt and possibility. Hannah arrived at dawn, practically vibrating with excitement in her yellow sundress, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she ran up the driveway. Ryan followed more slowly, carrying a cooler packed with sandwiches and fruit, blankets folded under his arm, his eyes finding Celeste's across the distance. "Ready for this?" he asked quietly, while Hannah raced inside to wake the girls, her voice already echoing through the halls. "For the beach?" Celeste adjusted her sunglasses, suddenly self-conscious in her white shorts and blue tank top. She'd spent 20 minutes choosing what to wear, which was ridiculous. "I think I can handle sand." "That's not what I meant." His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the space between them. "Ready for us to spend a whole day together? With our daughters watching everything we do? They're not stupid. They'll see." The intimacy of our daughters made her breath catch in her throat. "Not my daughter and your daughters, but ours." As if they were already a unit, already family, already something more than employer and employee. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you?" Before he could answer, Hannah emerged triumphant, pulling all 5 girls behind her like a tiny general commanding an army. Even Isabella had agreed to come, though she wore black to the beach, black swimsuit, black cover-up, black mood. But she'd come, and that was something. They drove in 2 cars, Ryan and Hannah on the Harley leading the way, the motorcycle's engine a throaty purr in the morning quiet, Celeste and her daughters following in the Range Rover. The beach Ryan chose wasn't the touristy one near the hotel, but a hidden cove accessible only by a narrow dirt road that wound through eucalyptus trees. Private, secluded, the kind of place locals kept secret from tourists and protected fiercely. "Daddy brings me here on my birthday," Hannah explained as they unpacked blankets and coolers and towels. "It's our special place. Just for us. But now it can be for everyone." Celeste watched Ryan spread blankets with economical movements, his muscles shifting under his t-shirt. He'd been coming here with Hannah for years, building memories, being present, showing up. Everything she hadn't done with her own daughters, too busy building hotels and running board meetings and hiding from her own failures. "Mom?" Arya tugged her hand with gentle insistence. "Can we build a sandcastle? A really big one?" "Of course." Celeste knelt beside her youngest, grateful for something to do with her hands. Something concrete and simple. What kind do you want to build? A big one with towers, Arya said, her eyes lighting up. And a moat. And maybe a bridge? I'll help, Hannah volunteered eagerly, dropping to her knees in the sand. I'm really good at moats. Daddy taught me about water flow and engineering. You have to dig them at the right angle or the water just drains away. Soon all the girls were involved, even Isabella, though she pretended to be supervising rather than participating, standing with arms crossed but occasionally offering suggestions that were actually helpful. They dug and sculpted and argued about architectural details and laughed. And Celeste found herself laughing too, really laughing from somewhere deep in her chest for the first time in years. Ryan appeared beside her with cold water, condensation dripping down the bottle. You're good at this. At sandcastles? She took the water gratefully, their fingers brushing in the exchange. At being a mom, when you let yourself be. His voice was gentle, without judgment. I can see it. The way Arya leans into you. The way the twins actually listen when you make suggestions. You're good at this, Celeste. You just forgot. The observation stung and soothed simultaneously, like alcohol on a wound. I haven't been good at it in a long time. Maybe ever. Maybe you just forgot how. He sat beside her in the sand, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. It's like riding a bike. The muscle memory is there. It comes back with practice. Is that what happened with you? After Hannah's mother left? His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping. Sarah didn't just leave. She disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation, no note. Just gone one morning when I woke up. Hannah was 2 years old. She asked for her mama every day for 6 months straight before she finally stopped asking. Pain flickered across his face, raw even after all these years. I had to learn everything fast. Couldn't afford to fail because failing meant failing her, failing the one person who depended on me completely. You didn't fail. Hannah's incredible. She's kind and smart and empathetic and everything good. She is all those things. He watched Hannah teaching the twins how to reinforce castle walls with wet sand. Despite me, not because of me. I make mistakes constantly. Say the wrong thing. Miss signs that she's upset. Work too much trying to keep us financially afloat. But I show up every single day. I'm there, and somehow that's been enough. Celeste felt tears prick her eyes, hot and unwelcome. I didn't show up. After James died, I just checked out. Hired people to handle my daughters while I buried myself in work. Told myself I was providing for them, securing their future, building something that would last. But really I was just hiding from my own guilt and grief. Why? The question was simple but profound. Because I didn't know how to help them grieve when I was drowning in my own guilt. Because every time I looked at them, I saw James's face in theirs, and remembered that I never loved him. Not really. That I married him to forget you. That our entire marriage was built on a lie, and they existed because of that lie, and he died still believing I might love him someday, if he just tried hard enough. Ryan's hand found hers in the sand, his fingers lacing through hers. That's not your fault. You can't control how you feel. Isn't it my fault? Her voice cracked. I made every wrong choice. Believed my father's lies about you. Married the wrong man for the wrong reasons. Had children in a broken marriage. James drove his car off that cliff because I'd finally been honest about not loving him. My daughters lost their father because I told the truth too late. No. Ryan's voice was firm, almost fierce. James drove off that cliff because he was drunk and made reckless choices. You're not responsible for his death any more than I'm responsible for Sarah abandoning Hannah. We can't control other people's actions, Celeste. We can only control our own. And right now, you're here. You're trying. That matters. Then what do I do now? How do I fix what I've broken with my daughters? You're already doing it. He squeezed her hand. You made dinner with them. You came to the beach. You're here, present, engaging. That's the first step. The rest will follow. Isabella's voice cut through the moment like a knife. Mom, the castle's done. Come see what we built. They approached the magnificent sandcastle. Towers, walls, a working moat. It's beautiful, Celeste breathed. It's ours, Arya said proudly. All of us together. After lunch, Ryan taught the older girls to surf while Celeste stayed with Hannah and Arya. She watched Sophia catch her first wave. Isabella actually smile, the twins working together. Your daddy's good with them, she told Hannah. He's good with everyone. Hannah looked up seriously. Do you love him? The question was so unexpected. I did. A long time ago. But not now? I don't know. It's complicated. Daddy says complicated just means you haven't figured it out yet. They walked the shoreline looking for shells. When they returned, Ryan was with the girls, all breathless and happy. We should talk, he said quietly. Later. She nodded. The drive home felt charged. Her daughters were exhausted, peaceful. After dinner and bedtime, Celeste found Ryan on the terrace. "I have something to show you." He handed her his phone. A photograph. 2 teenagers on a motorcycle laughing. She remembered that day. "I carried this for 15 years, Ryan said softly. "Couldn't let you go." "Ryan, let me finish." His fingers trembled. "When I saw this job, I almost didn't apply. Your father's house. I knew you might be here. Part of me wanted to see you. Part of me was terrified. But I came, and there you were, still beautiful, still the only woman I've ever truly loved." Celeste's tears fell. "I never stopped loving you. I tried. But every man I met, I compared to you. I built an empire trying to fill the hole you left. So where does that leave us? I don't know. But I want to find out. If you can forgive me. I can forgive you anything. The question is whether you can forgive yourself. I'm trying. I know." He cupped her face. And that's enough. When he kissed her, it was like coming home. 15 years dissolved. They pulled apart at giggles. 6 girls stood at the door grinning. "We knew it," Hannah crowed. Isabella rolled her eyes, smiling. "Took you long enough, Mom." Ryan pulled Celeste close. "What do we do now?" "We build something new," Madison said. "Together," Mackenzie added. "Like the sandcastle," Arya finished. And that's what they did. Ryan moved into the estate. The girls adjusted. Celeste learned to be present. 6 months later, Christmas morning, all 6 girls built something together. Hannah in yellow, Arya beside her, the twins working together, Sophia photographing, Isabella supervising with affection. Ryan appeared with coffee. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." She leaned into him. "Think we can do this? We're already doing it one day at a time, together." And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.